Imagine if you could instantly communicate with someone anywhere in the world. Now imagine that the sound quality was just as clear as if they were sitting directly next to you. Well, thanks to Moses Lake-based company, Reycomm, instant communication is no longer a figment of imagination, as they have successfully developed a first-of-its-kind international communication system using handheld digital radios. I'm your host, Jenny Rojanasatian, and thank you for joining me today on Networked. I'll be joined by co-founders Mike Reynolds and Michael Bushman, who have developed and implemented an all-digital communications network that integrates VHF, HF, LTE, and satellite into a single package. This custom system allows companies to communicate with multiple personnel at once from anywhere in the world. I'm so excited to welcome both of our guests to the NCW Life Studios today. Don't go far. We'll be right back on air after this short commercial break. Hello, North Central Washington, and welcome back to Networked. I am excited to introduce our guests. We have Mike and Michael, but we go by Chief over here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
So excited to have you. You've started a company, Reycomm, which we're going to dive a little bit into later down the road. But I'd love for our audience to learn a little bit more about each of you and your career history. Okay. So, Chief, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Bushman. I go by Chief, partly because Mike and Mike here.
Mike and Mike makes it a little easier.
That it does.
Yeah.
So, I'm retired military. Was in the Army for 23 and a half years. Had a couple of different jobs. Started as a medic. Wound up being a mechanic for the Alpha model Apache. And then wound up going to flight school and flying the Delta model and the Echo model Apaches.
And you have an incredible history. I mean, I was reading a little bit about it in the service. So thank you, first of all, for your service to our country. And let's talk about how that led you into Moses Lake, into working for Mitsubishi, and maybe how, Mike, then you came into play there.
Yeah, well, my background, I'm a retired helicopter pilot. I flew in the Gulf of Mexico on the civilian side of things, doing offshore platform support. And I was working for Mitsubishi in flight test and was there to welcome Chief on his first day as my new boss and kind of show him the ropes and break him in real well. Yeah, it worked really good. We worked quite closely together in a very small department in a room not much bigger than this set, and we did a lot of the planning for the aircraft as far as for the test flights. Anytime they were going to deploy anywhere, we would clear airspace for them, organize tracks, things like that. So.
And for people who are watching that are not familiar, Mitsubishi is no longer in Moses Lake, but were there for years.
Yes, ma'am.
Running all of their test programs, or what was a little bit, what brought Mitsubishi to Moses Lake to begin with?
Mitsubishi Aircraft Corporation was a part of MHI, which is Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, and they were trying to build a regional jet. It was a from-scratch program, fresh design, which regional jets haven't had that. It was initially called the MRJ, Mitsubishi Regional Jet, but they rebranded it as the Space Jet. Not because it goes into outer space, but because it was with the fresh design. They were making it for the flyers, the passengers in mind, so you could actually have roll-ons for everybody. And space, as they said, space matters. Yeah. So
more about the space of the interior for the consumer versus where the plane is actually going. But now, of course, fast forward, Mitsubishi's left.
Yes,
you guys have started an entrepreneurial journey. So let's talk about what was the catalyst that led you to go into business.
Well, I had started Reycomm as an ICOM dealer in March of 2019. while still working for Mitsubishi because I was so impressed with the product line that we were working with. We worked very closely with ICOM and some other corporations to develop really a state-of-the-art communications network at Mitsubishi. And for those that don't know, flight test is very nomadic. You go from project to project to project, and you typically move all around the world. And we didn't really want to do that. We were established in Moses Lake. We had families there. We didn't want to pack up and move. And we just decided, we've got a good thing going here. We've got a good working relationship. Let's take this and to the next level and start our own thing and do kind of the same thing. What led us to where we were at Mitsubishi was kind of solving problems, and then we'd find more problems. And rather than trying to put Band-Aids on everything and patch things together, we came up with a solution that addressed problems that we didn't even know we were having.
Right.
So that kind of launched us. And when we had a lot of firsts at Mitsubishi, first time radio was used from Moses Lake to talk to an airplane flying over Japan in real time. A lot of firsts.
Yeah.
So.
And that came from a lot of help from ICOM. They actually came to Moses Lake to see what our problem was, because initially when I got hired on, there had been kind of a safety inspection, and I was reading that, and it said there was an issue with comms. So I brought it up to Mike, had him purchase a couple of radios. They didn't quite work for our situation because where we were located, there was a very large hangar in the way, and part of their testing is they have to take a weather station next to the runway, so they have very accurate data that they can know how the aircraft is maneuvering and check everything against. So we couldn't talk to them. Everything was broken with cell phone, and then not knowing who was out there, you didn't know who to contact. So we reached out to ICOM. Mike did. He reached out a couple, and they're like, well, with ICOM being a Japanese company as well, they decided to come out, do a site visit. They wanted to help out in any way because the MRJ/Space Jet was a national project that they were very proud to assist with. So wound up going from line of sight issues to no line of sight issues by using their brand new LTE based radio. And then what started off as 5 radios expanded to 6.
80.
So
By the time we rolled in Japan.
because we had 65 in Moses Lake and surrounding, and then finally got them set up in Japan before things kind of went south on that end.
Well, we take for granted now the portability of our cell phones and the connectivity we have to make a phone call, but we all go through bad reception areas or
Right.
over mountain passes, and you don't have that luxury in flight, I imagine, to have a
No.
delay. You need an
Right.
instantaneous communication
Yes,
at
ma'am.
all times,
Yeah.
obviously for safety. Tell me, what are some other applications of your communications? Who else needs the services Reycomm provides and those instant communication pathways?
Well, we do a lot with aviation.
We do a lot with aviation, but we've also branched out since starting Reycomm. We've done a lot of work with the United States Air Force because they have a detachment at Grant County Airport that assists with the C-17s that come in and do their practice there. They have a combat strip that aircraft come from McCord and Fairchild and other bases to practice at. And they had the same problem. They had 9 different radios that they had to monitor, and bulky military radios, and we were able to streamline everything down to a small LTE radio that's about this big, and thought I had it on my hip there.
That's
for a
okay.
minute.
Well, in the next segment here, we're going to bring out some of the technology
Yes.
and look at that, which will be really exciting. But taking a 9-tier system, I guess, into
Right.
one small
Into
device
one
makes
small device,
makes
yeah.
a big difference.
So essentially, we put all of their, that was another first for us, first ever in the world, integrating military radio equipment with this civilian technology. It had never been done before, and there's really no manual for doing that. When you're kind of like, okay, how do I make this radio talk with this?
Yeah.
So a lot of programming, trial and error. But they're very happy. They have a solution now where they can monitor multiple frequencies at the same time, stay in contact with their aircraft out at the Yakima Training Center, as well as other areas. Their drop zone that they practice at about 30 miles away from the airport. And, we also work very closely. We've been working on some projects with public safety and law enforcement to streamline some of their communications as well.
So with both the military and law enforcement, I imagine there's, a lot of considerations in security and
Yes, ma'am.
safety. Does that add a lot of challenges outside of what you have done, say, on the aviation side for your customer base? Or is it essentially the same kind of systems and packages?
It takes, a lot of research and development to get the different radios to communicate onto the LTE, but ICOM has what they call an LTE bridge, and we're able to hook up legacy radios, so your VHF, UHF repeaters, or radios themselves, now military. So it basically translates it into the LTE network. And as far as security goes, it's all sent by data, so it can't be picked up by someone with a scanner.
Trying to listen in and
Yes,
get
ma'am.
into what's happening.
So it's it's basically scrambled.
Yeah.
It's more powerful than a cell phone. It uses the same technology, but with more power and then an external antenna. When you're having dropout with the regular phone, you're not getting that with this radio.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to bring all the equipment onto the NCW Live stage here in just a minute, but we have to head out to a commercial break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Reycomm. Welcome back to Networked. I'm your host, Jenny Rojanasatian, and I have been on air today with Mike Reynolds and Michael Bushman, or Chief. We're doing a little show and tell now in this next segment, actually looking at the equipment you use at your company, Reycomm, which is exciting because normally we don't get to do some actual presentation style. So, walk me through it, gentlemen. What do we have out here on the table?
Well, in front of me, this is a Airbus communications console. This is designed for airshow communications. So the Airbus is like the air traffic controller for the airshow. He's the one directing all of the performing aircraft and telling people when to go. So this console contains 2 ICOM radios, panel mount radios, intercom, external speaker, but it allows the Airbus to communicate within his team on standard aviation headsets, and then also communicate with this push-to-talk here with antennas connected in the back to the performing aircraft. So
I never thought about the logistics of an air show and how many aircrafts you have in a very short range of each other. So I imagine that's incredibly important to have precise communication.
It is. And one of the things we tried to build into this is redundancy. Like typically air shows, most of the equipment's being run off of generators. So we incorporated an uninterrupted power supply in this so that in the event that in the middle of the performance, one of the generators was to go down, the Airbus would still have communication with the performing aircraft. So
that's fantastic, and I'm sure it gives your consumers a lot of confidence then in your products. And Chief, what about right over here?
So this is what we called our Go Box. We actually built this while we were at Mitsubishi. Part of it was because our aircraft, we had to send them out to satellite airports to do certain flight tests because not everything could be done at Moses Lake. So where we really used this was like at Roswell, New Mexico. We sent it to Rockford, Illinois. We actually have this up in Fairbanks. And what this is this is the bridge, the LTE bridge I was telling you about. It has the ability you can plug in up to 4 different radios in the back. And that's what allows this radio to activate it, just like it's a channel in there. But you have multiple different radio assets that you can use.
So someone could be up in Fairbanks right now, have the handheld radio and get instant communications through this system.
So the reason why I did this was instead of having to send like Mike down whenever they're in Roswell, we could go down one day or even teach someone how to set this up with an external antenna And so as long as the aircraft was in sight of the antenna that worked this VHF radio, we could communicate with the aircraft like they were on our ramp in Moses Lake. Very helpful because we had to record all the flight data, information from the pilots, had to be very accurate. And instead of having to wait for a text or email, I was able to have them call just like they would here, and we could get all the data in real time, accurately.
And if anything were to come up during the flight, we could actually speak to them real time from our office in Moses Lake while they were flying over New Mexico. We used some really good antennas by a company called Antenna Products out of Texas. Our contact there, Phil Park, set us up with some fantastic air-to-ground antennas that gave us really incredible range on this system.
So you know, this innovation, you know, you've really customized communications packages for your different client base.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next project? What are you guys working on now? And how does it evolve from here?
Right now, we're working on some technology for law enforcement to assist with crisis negotiation type situations. It's a system that'll operate independently, so it won't require any cellular internet connectivity. It won't even require electricity. It'll all be wireless based, battery powered for challenging situations for law enforcement. We're going to be continuing to expand our military integration that we're doing and look forward to integrating more bases and giving more communications capabilities to them. And we have some projects in the works for FEMA and some other public safety type organizations that we're working on. So a lot of custom stuff.
It sounds like it. And I know we were talking off air about the for our police personnel, that kind of hostage negotiation communications system. And yeah, it makes sense. You can't show up and say, "Where's my power source?" You don't have time.
Right. Or what's the phone number for that house? You know, nobody has landlines anymore. So it's all, you know, as far as getting communications quickly, we've been working very closely with negotiators and the tactical guys from Moses Lake PD as far as developing this technology. And really our approach to this is we talk to our customers or our clients and find out what capabilities do you want. Like if your wish list, if never mind whether it's possible or not, but your wish list, if you could have everything you wanted, what would it do? Yeah. And then we figure out a way to bring that into reality.
Right. Yeah, you take their dreams and then create the innovation that can make it happen.
Right.
I mean, we dreamed this up, and Mike had mentioned earlier that we were able to talk with the airplane over Japan, and pretty much this setup was available over in Japan. And it took a little bit, but Reycomm worked with us so we could talk either from the handheld radio, and it would go to this box, and then via the internet over to Japan, out the box, and control VHF radio. So just a case in point, the chief pilot was actually able to talk from his apartment in Moses Lake to his air crews that were doing the maiden flight of an aircraft over the skies of Japan, all legal and all off-the-shelf parts. We're just integrating them and building them in a much different way.
That's really cool. And you know, something we haven't really touched on, but it seems like behind all of this innovation is really for safety, right? So people can connect and have the information they need to, whether that's in air or for police, you know, for public interest. So thank you for the services that you're creating here. Let's just talk a little bit, we only have a few minutes left, about the entrepreneurial journey. So you both had very established careers and worked for a large company, and then you went out to be a small business owner. So someone watching today, what advice would you give them about becoming an entrepreneur?
You know, just kind of believe in yourself and take the chance. I mean, Mitsubishi shut their doors in June of 2020, and it put Mike and I in unemployment, and we didn't want to be unemployed anymore. So we wound up saying, hey, we did some fantastic things with Reycomm and with Mitsubishi that was new and no one else had done it, basically. So we're like, let's build on that. And so we started piecing it together. And Mike and I actually started the company in January. So
Of this year.
yes.
Last year.
And I think
No,
we have a
it was this
photo
year.
of the
2020.
front entrance too.
2021.
So
Oh yes.
yeah.
So that is actually standing outside our first office.
Okay.
We started as an LLC, and we were in an office that gave us our kickstart. So we were there for 3 or 4 months, and then through Rich Mueller, at the airport director at Moses Lake, Grant County International Airport, we had the opportunity to move actually to the airport. So with us both being helicopter pilots, it was a perfect fit.
Like coming home a little bit.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if you're already there and in the industry, and you've been on the road too. I mean, here's a photo
Yes,
at
ma'am.
a recent convention, right?
That's correct. In December, we were at a trade show for International Council of Air Shows. This was our booth set up at the Paris Hotel in Las Vegas. And, we actually have Mark Jordan there from Reycomm working on his computer. He'll be happy for the plug. But, it's amazing to see how much we've grown in just a year, and bearing in mind that it took 5 months for us to get our first customer after we opened
Right.
our doors. So for anyone out there thinking of doing this, be persistent, stay with it, believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing, and, it'll come.
I kind of feel like we're the exception in that we've come so far so quickly, but it wasn't easy. I mean, we, like you said, 4 or 5 months before we even had a customer, and even then it was smaller. So we saw an opportunity. We volunteered our equipment and our time for the Moses Lake Air Show, and it actually went very well for our equipment. It was a great demonstration of its capabilities, and then interagency, combining everybody so that everyone had that situational awareness that they didn't have before, quite honestly.
Well, I thank you guys for coming on air with me today.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm so excited for Reycomm and for your company.
Thank you.
I encourage people to find you online and learn more if they're interested. So thanks again for being on
Yes,
here.
ma'am. Thank
a
you for
lot of
having
Thank
us.
you for
fun.
having
It was
us.
a pleasure, and we're excited to be here.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have him back on air here next year and learn what the next chapter is in your story. We do have to head out to one final commercial break, so stay tuned. I want to thank you for joining us today on the NCW Life channel for our show Networked. It was so much fun to have the founders behind Reycomm join me on air. I hope you learned something new. And if you happen to need digital communications,
Since 1999, NCW Tech Alliance has served as our regional hub for technology innovation. As a 501c3, their nonprofit mission is to connect people and technology resources to create a thriving community. You can network with the team and guests from today's show by visiting them at www.ncwtech.org.